What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a wonderful day. I just decided to make a video today because it looked so beautiful outside. I'll show you guys how it looks. So, you know who it is? It's your man's Donovan, out here for another one. I just got on here because I wanted to talk about something that I thought was really interesting. I was studying recently, and I was like, I could make a good video. What I want to talk about today is compassion. What is true compassion? What is true empathy, true pity for somebody else? Jesus is wrote about in the scriptures as having compassion on people multiple times. We know a couple things about Jesus to give us a couple pieces of the puzzle of what true compassion is. Worldly compassion, worldly pity is a totally different thing. It's so far different, but it's so melded together by today's ways of thinking that it's hard to spot. I was originally looking up compassion in the 1828 dictionary, and I found that I could find the word compassion, but I couldn't find a counterpart. There was nothing of compassion or pity that was wrong. It was just a word. There's no word for a counterpart of that. But I've seen a lot of, and I've understood a lot of people's way of thinking, and it isn't true compassion, but yet it veils itself as true compassion. It looks from the outside in as true compassion when it's really not. When it's really not about that at all. And it's not something Christ would want us to really do. As I was researching this, I found some really interesting things. First off, we need to go to love. Jesus dealt with everything in perfect love. Everything he did was in perfect love. He was completely selfless. Every day of his life was complete selflessness. Jesus did not do one thing that was selfish or self-serving. Not one thing. Of course, we know God is love. Jesus Christ is the express image of the Father. Everything that God would have done, Jesus did in God's place, in Jehovah's place. You could say Yahweh, Jehovah. Everything the Father would have done, the Son did as his representation. We know that God is... I'm gonna come get you, boy. I'm gonna come get you. Come here. Come here. Captured the culprit. This guy just keeps crowing. He wants to crow while I'm talking. I think it's because I'm talking loud and he thinks that I'm crowing because, it's how animals are. They don't really understand, I guess. This is my little rooster here. See if I can get a close-up of him. He's my little buddy, but sometimes he likes to interrupt, and he likes to be rude. So if you pick him up for a minute, you hang out with him for a second, he stops being like that. He ends up usually being pretty quiet. I could close him up in the chicken coop, but I don't really want to do that. You gonna be quiet while I do my video? Good. Alright, I'm gonna go let him back out now. The biblical definition of love is found in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, and is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. Powerful. Absolutely powerful. We can all ask ourselves, are the things that we're doing in perfect love? Love is the root. See, we're not born inherently with love. We are born under the first Adam. We are born under a fallen nature, a nature of sin. You must be born again. That is how you obtain true love. And it's not your own. It comes from the Father directly. It's like a conduit. There's an order of God. It goes from God and Christ, Christ and man, man over woman, and woman over children. This is directly the way that love is supposed to flow. Flows down as a tree from the roots all the way to the leaves. God made this order for a reason, because God is a God of order. Most people think that they have love, but they really don't have love. And it's sad to say, it's hard to say, but it's the truth. Most people do not even know what love is. That's why it's our duty as Christians to show them true love, to show them what true love is. I think some of these concepts are important to understand as Christians. What is true compassion? What is true pity? Because Satan is very deceptive. He has the ability to mix truth and lie together, and it seems right, but it's wrong. It seems like it's the right thing to do. I'll give you an example. All of these homeless people, it's horrible what's happening. All these people that are homeless and don't have homes and that are suffering. You may think, on a worldly sense, have compassion over them, have pity over them, and you say, I'm going to give this homeless person money. I'm going to give him a $100 bill. Now, this comes from you, but you may have compassion upon that person and give them $100. Later on, they go and use that $100 to buy drugs, and they overdose and die that night because you felt compassion and gave them $100. Now, I've heard people tell me, I did pity them and I had compassion, so I gave the homeless people money. And, I don't care if he spent it on drugs. Whatever he does at that point, it's up to him. I don't really like that reasoning. I feel like it takes away the responsibility of what you've done. It's not that what you did was inherently bad. There's a time and a place for everything. And if you don't have a connection to God, you're going to mess up every time. Giving homeless people money 99.9% of the time is more of an enabling behavior. I used to watch the show, I'm sure you guys maybe some of you are familiar with, The Rifleman.
The Rifleman. Starring Chuck Connors.
I used to love this show. One thing that really stuck out to me about the show, made a little bit older, is that the man, the star of the show, had true compassion. Somebody came to his ranch, he would not immediately give them money and send them on their way. A man comes with a problem. He's on his lowest point in his life. Maybe he's done something wrong and he regrets it. The rifleman doesn't say, oh, sir, I feel so sorry for you. Well, here's some money, here's some provisions, you go about your way. No. The rifleman says, okay, well, I tell you what, I got a lot of work that needs done at my ranch. How about you come? How about I'll give you a place to stay for the night, for however long you need it, a couple weeks, but you're not going to stay here for free. I want you to work. You're going to work for me, and I'll pay you for your work. That is true compassion. Instead of giving the man a fish, he teaches the man how to fish. It's the same way with children. The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Basically meaning you spare discipline, you're going to spoil the child. Why is that? It's because there's certain lessons that need to be learned. And I'm going to go into this more later. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Webster's Dictionary. So I looked it up in the Webster's Dictionary, 1828, because definitions have changed. And I like to go with the classical biblical definitions of words. I looked up the word compassion. Compassion in the Webster's 1828 dictionary, compassion is defined as a suffering with another, painful sympathy, a sensation of sorrow excited by the distress or misfortunes of another, pity, commiseration. Now, pity is another interesting one. So I'm going to read you out from the definition of pity according to the same source. Pity is described as pain or sorrow for the misfortune of others. This definition aligns closely with compassion, but can imply a more passive feeling. Pity recognizes the suffering of others and feels sorrow for them. It recognizes the suffering of others and feels sorrow for them. It doesn't come with the inherent active desire to alleviate that suffering. Why is this important? Jesus had pity on many people. Why is this important that we understand the definitions of compassion and the definitions of pity? Because there's a worldly counterpart that's out there and that's very deceptive. Very deceptive. Many people think that they have love, they have compassion, and they have pity, but really it's selfishness. And I'm going to explain to you why. So what's the difference between true compassion, pity, and wicked or selfish compassion and pity? Well, I'll tell you, I think fundamentally at its core, the compassion and pity described by Webster and exemplified by Jesus are fundamentally about empathy, understanding, and a genuine desire to help others without seeking personal gain. This type of compassion leads to actions that empower the individual in need, encouraging growth, learning, and independence. It's not merely about alleviating the suffering in the short term, but about fostering resilience and capabilities for the future. We don't want to take away short-term suffering if it's going to stop people from growing and maturing spiritually. Sometimes suffering is needed in order for somebody to realize things. I'll take myself, for instance. I had to go to the lowest point of my life before I even started thinking about God again in the way I was when I was younger. I went so far down the depths of hell, and I suffered. Let me tell you, I suffered. I suffered so much that I couldn't even live as a sober person. I had to be on some type of drug. I had to be on some type of, whether it be marijuana, I'd be high. I had to be on something. I was going through so much suffering. If somebody would have given me everything I needed at that time and temporarily alleviated my suffering, I may have never found God. I may have never built up the strength to overcome those things for now and for the future. Now I'll never touch any drugs again. I'll never leave God again because I was there at the worst of the worst. This is what we need to understand because we often do the wrong thing when we try to help people. We often try to help them by alleviating the temporary suffering without fostering growth and resilience and independence. It really made me think of enabling. Have you guys ever seen that show 600 Pound Life? There's a show out that shows the life of somebody who's 600 pounds. And I remember I used to watch this show. Something that was very interesting in that show is that there's somebody that's 600 pounds, really big person. And you feel sorry for them because they can't do anything, they can't move around, they can't live life the way a normal person should. They've eaten themselves to death. One thing to note about those situations, there's always an enabler.
You need to change, and she needs to stop bringing you food.
I have to eat something.
No, you don't have to eat something. You have eaten 800 pounds of food in you.
There's always somebody that is enabling them, that is buying them food, that is cooking the food for them. That person thinks that they love the other. They think that they love the other person because the other person is, oh, I'm starving, I'm so hungry. And they're 600 pounds. I'm so hungry. Oh, I'm starving to death. I need food. Please cook me some food. If you don't cook me some food, I'm going to get angry. It's usually how it goes. And they'll say hurtful things. And so this other person, the enabler, the one that is helping and is loving the other person, seeks to take away that temporary suffering by cooking them food, by going and buying them ice cream or whatever they ask for, candies and whatnot. This is a prime example of what love is not. You may ask, what does that other person get out of it? Well, I'll tell you what they get out of it. It makes them feel better and gives them a sense of control. See, this compassion, this pity, this empathy, it comes from a place of perceived superiority or a desire to feel needed or important. The reason that person is enabling that other is because they have a desire to feel needed or important. If I leave, this person's going to die. If I leave, this person won't be able to live. They're dependent upon me. I'm superior to them. That's what it's all about. It's a superiority complex. It's so hidden and it's so deep. It's really amazing to see it. It involves actions that might temporarily relieve distress, but ultimately it prevents the individuals from facing their problems and growing. What enabling and fake compassion does is it keeps the person in a state of dependency, undermining their ability to learn, adapt, and become self-sufficient. And this contrasts sharply with true compassion, which seeks up to build the individual. This is how cults work. Cults have you dependent on one person. When you're in a cult, you are dependent upon that one person, the leader of the group. And you are dependent upon them for everything. We should not be dependent upon any human being. We should not be dependent upon any human being. We should be dependent on God and God alone, because He is the only one that cannot fail us. So another example of fake compassion or fake pity would be consistently solving somebody's problems or shielding them from facing the consequences of their own actions. This is why child discipline is so important. Children must face the consequences of their actions. If you don't give them consequences for bad actions, they are going to turn into little demons. I promise you. I'm sure you yourself have met children like this that have been enabled by their parents, and they're the worst children to be around. You love them because you love children, but at the same time, they're just evil and rotten to the core. And this is because their parents don't really love them. If the parents really loved them, they would discipline them, not enable them to just do whatever they want. See, while it might come from a place of wanting to help, it doesn't encourage the development or resilience that person could have. Instead, it fosters dependency and can even exacerbate the underlying issues, meaning that it oftentimes, when you enable people, oftentimes when you show them fake compassion, fake pity, it makes the problems worse. It's like giving homeless. You want to be nice to the homeless, so you give them $100. Here you go. Oh, I feel so good about giving that man money. It makes me feel so good. I'm glad I'm not him. Here you go, $100. And then that person goes and buys some drugs and overdoses. But that's not your fault. It's not your fault at all. They chose to do that. You gave them the money, and then from there, you're playing God. You gave them the money, and then from there, they can make their own choice. You see how messed up that way of thinking is? I really want to bring that home because it's something that's very important. It's something I see all the time. You think you're helping, but you're making the problem worse. You're making the problem so much worse without even realizing it, but it makes you feel good. So you're going to do it anyways. To complete the video, the difference lies in the outcome and intention behind the action. True compassion empowers and uplifts, aiming for the long-term well-being of the person in need. In contrast, fake pity, fake compassion, worldly or selfish compassion, selfish pity, provides immediate relief, but ultimately it disempowers the individual, and it keeps them in a cycle of dependency, and it hinders their growth and autonomy. There's a time for helping people. There's a time for people to get up on their feet that they need help, and there's a time to go and help those people. But those people need to learn how to grow. They need to learn resilience. They need to learn independence. So next time, instead of giving somebody money when they ask for it, try doing this instead. Try saying, yeah, I can give you $100, but I'd like you to work for me. How about, we got some, I got some leaves that need raked. I can let you, you can go out there and rake some leaves and make $100. You may pay them a little bit more than what you would want, but it's important that we teach others how to fish. And we're not just giving them fishes. That can be really dangerous. So, anyways, I hope all that made sense. When I was doing the research for this video, I just thought it'd be cool and I wanted to share it with everybody. So, anyways, God bless you and much love and grace. Goodbye.